Welcome back. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I always enjoy having the opportunity to talk to you every weekend. We've been doing the show for the last for more than 20 years now, believe it or not. But it's an honor. It's an honor to share your weekend. There was every during the last I would say the last 20 years, 25 years. There's been there has been different organizations that have tried to influence the way the Mexican government implements their security strategy. And one of the ways to at least try to understand what the new administration's strategy is going to be is to ask the candidates, especially the candidates who want to be president of Mexico, to lay out what are they planning to do. And throughout the years, this exercise sometimes is very useful and sometimes it's not, especially if the candidates don't want to answer that question. And the question mark is, why would they not answer that question? Isn't security and safety one of the main issues that should help us define who we want to vote for? Well, I'm not too sure. That's why I really appreciate today's guest, Doria Velez. She is the research director at the Citizens Observatory. The Citizens Observatory have been supporting the show throughout the years. I really appreciate, Doria, you joining us today. I know the Citizens Observatory tried to get the candidates, at least some of the candidates, try to get the presidential candidates to lay out what their security strategy was going to be. How did that work out? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invitation. Well, I think that the results of this exercise were a little depressing because with the results we obtained, we can affirm that the security is a great loser in this election, because with the results of the presidential candidates, we saw that there is no second floor, no hope, and no third option in this matter, because first of all, we identify that the seriousness of the proposals wasn't a priority for the candidates. They preferred to present simplified proposals, diagnoses that were with some mistakes. First of all, it seems that fentanyl doesn't exist as a political or security problem. They don't talk even about how they are going to strengthen the forensic institutions. For them, that is not a problem. It seems that there's money for everything, no? And they don't really know how they are going to obtain that money. And so their proposals aren't that serious. One thing that is positive is that it is the first time they talk about the disappeared persons. No, it's the missing persons. It's the first time they talk about them. However,
if they had not spoken about the disappeared people, I mean, how can you not talk about the disappeared persons?
Well, in the past elections, the presidential candidates, they didn't talk about that. Now there's a very simple mention about the problem and what they would do. For example, Claudia Sheinbaum, she only said that she will continue with the actual political strategy in order to search for missing persons. And the Xochitl Galvez, she proposed more actions, but she didn't take into consideration all of the actions that are that they are included in the law, in the general law in this matter. And Maynes, he only proposed to strengthen the Comisión Nacional de Búsqueda. So they take this problem into consideration in a very simple manner. And one thing I want to mention is that the three presidential candidates, we gave them more than a month, like a month and a half to answer these questionnaires. And the three of them didn't answer it in time. The only one that we obtained some answers was Xochitl Galvez, but she gave them to us this week, like the night before our press conference. So one thing that we detect is that she mentioned a variety of victims in this security matter. She talked about journalists, she talked about indigenous people, she talked about women, she talked about other kinds of crimes, for example, like environmental crimes, but everything she talked about is just a positive statement. She says, I'm not going to let impunity increases. I'm not going to let and the criminals to continue acting, but we didn't see how she was going to do it. In case of Claudia Sheinbaum, we analyze her platform. So one of the things that we saw is that basically she continues with the actual security strategy, federal strategy, and she thinks that Mexico City, that the country is like Mexico City. So she states that she's going to do what she did in Mexico City in order to decrease homicides, in order to look for missing persons, in order to strengthen the police department. But she didn't recognize that every state in Mexico has a different reality. So there's no way that what she did in Mexico City can reply and have the same results in all the country. Also, she focused especially on how she was going to change the judicial power. So here we can see that she is continuing with what President López Obrador is saying every time about how he's going to change the Supreme Court.
Yeah. And you know what? And that's interesting because we just so our audience understands what changes she wants. I mean, the president has insisted that judges should face elections. They should face an electoral process similar to the election of a mayor or of a governor. And of course, that is a recipe for disaster. Even in countries where the United States, they have some judges that are elected. It's an issue. It's lower level judges, but still, it's not. I don't think anybody would be proud to say that that is a solution to this massive amount of violence and territorial control by organized crime. Can you imagine in a place like Sinaloa if judges had to be elected?
Yes, no, it's ridiculous. And another thing that it was interesting of her proposal is that she never mentioned the armed forces.
Yeah.
She only talks about Guardia Nacional, so she never states what she's going to do with the armed forces. So you don't know if she's going to continue just with how they have been acting this last administration, or if she's going to look for a change. That is very different with the proposal of Xochitl Galvez, because she states, at least in the exercise of Por un México Seguro, she states that she's going to end with the militarization of public security. So there's an important difference. And in the case of the proposal of Jorge Maynez, really, what you can identify is that there are a bunch of good ideas of what one person would desire the best scenario one could desire. For example, well, you say, I'm going to try to do some things in the penitentiary system, but he didn't state how he was going to. He said he was going to do something for human rights, but it is what a student would say, yeah, I would like that way to be the public security in my country. So really, with all of that results, we say that the security is a great loser because
there is no strategy.
none of them took it seriously, and it is really frustrating because we have a crisis not only of missing person, we have a crisis of racketeering, of extortion, of homicides, and none of them really proposed a solution for all of that problems.
And maybe they just don't want to state what they think the solution is, or they don't know what it is. I mean, I can understand Claudia Sheinbaum being very careful because she will not say anything that is different than President Andres Manuel López Obrador. The problem is the security strategy of this administration has been chaotic at best, if not a disaster. And so, I mean, on the one hand, and Xochitl, I guess I don't know why they were so reluctant to present a proposal. And Maynes had some very interesting ideas during the debate, the last presidential debate, in trying to focus on crimes that are, that most impact the population. I mean, he was kind of saying things that were a little bit obvious, but at least he tried to give some interesting ideas. But I think you're right. We're just going to have to wait for the new president to be elected and see what she's going to do. Doria Velez, I really appreciate you joining us here on Living in Mexico. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Doria Velez. She is the director of research at the Citizens Observatory. It's an NGO that basically, that's what they work on. They try to understand the security and the violence phenomena in Mexico. Let's go to commercial break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar, and you're listening in and watching Living in Mexico. Please don't go away.